All right, the Freilich Chanukah, B'Shus Tamar D'Asra. We're continuing our Shir and Dirshu B'Halacha. We have a lot to cover tonight because we didn't finish last night's Dirshu, so we're going to jump right into the Halacha. I'm going to skip Pirkei Avos this evening. So we're holding on Kuf Pei Hey Amud Aleph. We're in Siman Shin Lamed Ches, getting very close to the end of Hilchos Shabbos. We're in Siman Shin Lamed Ches. We're in the middle of Seif Hey. So if on Kuf Pei Hey Amud Aleph you see Seif Hey, we're going to go down into the third line of Seif Hey, in the middle of the Ramah, in the middle of the line. We'll repeat a little bit of what we ended off with last night, just to get back into it. So the Ramah says, "Umuter lischaik ba'atzamais shekayrin chich." You're allowed to play a game that was fashioned out of these small bones. It was called chich. Could be it was chess. Others suggest it's something like kugelach or some form of dice. You're allowed to play with these pieces. Afal pi shemashmiim koil. Even though, if you imagine kugelach, when you throw down the kugelach, they make noise, they clap against each other. But there's no problem of hashmas koil. And the Ramah says very clearly, why not? Hoil ve'enon mechavnin l'shir. As we said, hashmas koil is an isser if you're doing something that is derech shira v'simcha. If it's joyous, it has to do with song, with being mesameach, then there's a potential isser of hashmas koil. Or if you're using a keli hamayuchad l'shir, kugelach hanat kelim hamayuchadim l'shir, and the jingling, the knocking, is not derech shira v'simcha. So there's no problem of hashmas koil. Now, let's take a look in the Mishnah Berurah, is cut in Chaf Aleph, ba'atzamais. V'noyagin la'asayson shel kesef. The ones that they would use on Shabbos, they had a minhag to make them out of silver, sheyiyu miyuchadin l'Shabbos, so that they should be specifically for use on Shabbos. Dim loikein, because if not, mechzik uvda d'chayil, it has an appearance of uvda d'chayil. So we've mentioned this previously. Uvda d'chayil, there are various types of uvda d'chayil. There are certain things that the Chachamim asered because of uvda d'chayil, because it's not doing these things. It's not the ambiance of Shabbos. It's not the avirah of Shabbos. It's like we would say to our kids, that's not Shabbosdik. You know, so if you see a kid going out, he wants to go play with his friends and he's putting on sneakers, right? I caught my kid one Shabbos, he's going to play and he's wearing sneakers. I whoa, back in the house. So, but I'm running around. I said, okay, you'll run around with Shabbos shoes. And you'll cost daddy money because daddy's going to have to pay or replace your Shabbos shoes. But it's not Shabbosdik. We don't go with sneakers on Shabbos. I'm not going to say it's usher, but that's the concept of uvda d'chayil. There are things that are usher because of uvda d'chayil, because they're not just the environment of Shabbos. It's not called for. So a game, certain types of games, maybe it's not Shabbosdik. But if you make them out of silver, so now you're using something that's miyuchid for Shabbos, that takes away the problem of uvda d'chayil. And we had a similar case of this in Siman Shin Chav Zayin. Over there, the Mechaber is talking about a back scratcher. And he says, you don't use a back scratcher on Shabbos. Somehow, uvda d'chayil. But if you have a silver one, then it's okay. So from there, the Paiskim look and they say, so you see that you have this concept. There could be something that's not called for on Shabbos, but if you make a specific keli out of it, you make a choshev Shabbos keli out of it, it takes away of the uvda d'chayil. The Chavetz Chaim continues. We're on Kuf Pei Hey Amud Aleph, Shin Lamed Ches Seif Hey. We're middle of the Mishnah Berurah, is cut in Chaf Aleph. Umahara Sasan Chaylik. He argues on this. Sfirle Kevin Chein Teyelas B'Yedias Chachmas Aschay Kahu. Since this kind of game does not bring any chachma, it doesn't sharpen a person's mind. V'hu hadin kol minei schayk, or any other kind of game. Also, you don't want to play games. We spoke about this yesterday. You don't play games on Shabbos. V'af b'chol yizar mishum moishav leitzim. U'kamoishav kasu b'simin shin zayin sifteh zayin. V'ayin b'birka yosef shevi oid b'shem kama gedolim she'echmiru b'zeh. It's kedai to mention, even though some people maybe will jump out of his skins, but I heard a shmuz from Friedrich Klausenberger Rebbe. And he spoke about Kedusha Shabbos. And he starts off the shmuz, and he says, Ich kim aran in Besmedrish. I come into the shul, I come into Besmedrish, by davening. And minute, there are people talking. So you're listening to the shmuz and you're thinking that he's going to rail against talking in shul. No. He says, Yin, a Shabbos minute? You talk on Shabbos? Dvarim b'telim? On Shabbos? He says, Metarnished. Saucer? He says, you're not allowed to talk Dvarim, even during the week to talk Dvarim b'telim, but on Shabbos to speak Dvarim b'telim? And he went on for about 25 minutes on the concept of not talking on Shabbos. You don't talk on Shabbos. Shabbos, you daven, you sing zmiris, you say, you learn Torah, you say divrei Torah, but to speak Dvarim b'telim on Shabbos? Now, I don't know who, I remember who was sitting in the room at the time, but I guarantee you that 95 or 98% of the people that were sitting in that room speak Dvarim b'telim on Shabbos. And the Rebbe knew good and well that after they walked out, they were going to continue to speak Dvarim b'telim on Shabbos. But there is a concept. There's a concept. Now, the truth is that the Klozberger Rebbe didn't speak Dvarim b'telim during the week either. He didn't.
He created the world in Dibber.
Yeah.
It should be.
100%.
Shabbos, he rested his Dibber. He stopped saying that. So we have to do the same.
Well, Dibur. I know a Maisa with Klozberger Rebbe, with my uncle, that he came to speak. He called him over to speak to him before Shachris about something for the tzibur, and it came time. It was 10 minutes before Shachris, and my uncle knew that the Rebbe always made hachanas before Shachris, so he said it's 10 minutes to Shachris. And kept on talking. 5 minutes, kept on talking. So the Rebbe Shachris started. So the Rebbe got angry at him, and the Rebbe said, "What are you trying to tell me? If what I was speaking to you about wasn't important, I wouldn't be speaking to you at all, right? So if I'm speaking to you, it's because it's important. And if it's important now too. And we're going to daven later. But it's important. We need to speak about this for the tzibur. We need to take care of it. We need to get it done." Okay. Zogt the Ramah weiter. So the Ramah continues, and the Ramah says, "V'chol zeh b'seichik derech tzroik ba'alma." This that we're saying that you're allowed to play these games is when you're playing stam, a game, an enjoyable game. Avo b'seichik kidei laharviach. If you're playing a type of game where there is actual gain and loss, even if it's not monetary, we'll see what he means. Also, afilu seichik b'tamu b'chaser. Let's say we're playing nuts, and the kids play odds or evens. Right? You don't know what you have in your hand, odds or evens, and the winner takes the nuts. So now there's gain and loss involved in the game. That, the Ramah says, that you're not allowed to do. Because now it suddenly schmecks of business dealings. It looks like you're doing business on Shabbos, so we don't do business on Shabbos. Now they do bring. Let's see what the Chavetz Chaim says here. B'tamu b'chaser perish grad umgrad, which means odd or even. B'losh and Ashkenaz. If you look in the Dirshu in 25, I think it is. No, it's in the back. Yeah, it's in the back in the Meluim, page 67. He brings down over here from some of the Pesachim I remember seeing. Yeah, in 25, it's on page 67 near the bottom. Ulagabe miskak monopoly, shemasachim by bekesef meduma, where you play with fake money and you're buying and selling properties. Sidei kagoin Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, shekem chain mesachik bekesef mamish, says you're not playing with real money. Hey, there's no problem. Show mischak also lahafsid, even though it's this kind of game that there's gain and loss, but it's all fake. The dasa gunrim nisakarelitz shemin adin ein lesar kevichurak mischak. That really there's no reason to answer it. Umakamaka means that covered a Shabbos lahargala sayaladim and masachikim yainelu to play these kind of games. It's not the proper aura for Shabbos. You don't have to stop the children from playing, but Rav Nissi Karelitz said that the fathers shouldn't play. I know Rishiva Zatzal, Rav Moshe also wasn't makbid on this. He held there's nothing wrong with playing these kind of games where there's buying and selling with fake money. I can tell you that when my kids were young and I had to keep my kids busy all Shabbos afternoon, I played Monopoly with my kids also. Okay, now, Zok the Ramah weiter. Umikal Malkam ein limchais ben nashim uktanim the mutav sheyushagin v'al yumazidin. There is a concept, sometimes you don't tell somebody that something is usher, especially when it's a specious isser, when it's not such a clear-cut isser, you let them do it, let worst comes to worst, they'll be a shogig, not amazing. V'lischak b'kadur, to play with a ball, ayin la'el simin shin ches, sif mem hey, and if I remember correctly over there in shin ches, it speaks about the potential problem of, there's one Mandi Amar who holds that a ball could be muktzah, because a ball is not a keli, and then there are those that are chaylik and hold that a ball definitely is a keli, and that's the way we learn that a ball is clearly not muktzah. Where is it? Hey, where is it? What does he bring down? Shin ches mem hey. Mem hey. Yeah, also lischak b'Shabbos v'yontav b'kadur, and the Ramah says v'yesh matirin v'nagu l'hakel, and that's what the machlokes is over there, whether or not the ball is considered a keli. Okay, sif vav. This is a sif that I don't think this sif really has much ramifications for us because of the running water that we have, but the Mechaber says as follows: also lishav mayim begalgal. You're not allowed to draw water up from a well using a mechanism called a galgal. I've seen people who translate this as a water wheel. I've seen other people who translate it as a windlass, which is a more complicated, doesn't use the wind. A windlass, which is a complex pulley system using counterweights, etc. But it's a mechanism that is made to draw up water, to draw up heavy items. So you're not allowed to draw water with a galgal. Why? Gezerah shem yamale leginasai v'churbasai ay lemishra shel pishtan. The Chachamim had made a gezerah that if you're going to use a mechanized system which is going to allow you to bring up large quantities of water relatively easy, so especially in an agrarian society where where irrigation of your crops was a big deal, you might come when you have this galgal, and now you're activating the galgal to draw water, you might come to draw a large quantity of water and go get busy watering your crops and doing your irrigation. And if you look at the Chavetz Chaim, Chav Gimel, Shemi Yamale, what's the worry? Mitoich Shem Yamalim B'loi Torach. To go to the well and draw a bucket of water, we're not afraid that you're going to draw buckets of water and start doing your irrigation. But now you're cranking up the windlass, you're going and you're using a water wheel, now already it's mechanized, it's easy, there's no tercha, now you might get involved. You say, oh, you know what, I remember I have to water the wheat, let me go water these crops. Lefikach, therefore, the Mechaber continues, Im loy hayasham loy gina, v'loy churba, v'loy brecha, lishreis pa pishtan. Since the whole worry over here is you might come to irrigate your crops, therefore, says the Mechaber, if you do not have a garden over there to go water, and you don't have a churva, we usually translate churva as a rune. And a churva over here means either an area of property that you ripped up and you decided to use for crops, or it means a place where there was a building that fell down, and now you're going to take advantage of that area to go plant crops. V'loy brecha, and you don't have a pool, lishreis pa pishtan, that you use to soak flax. So in other words, the Mechaber is saying, if you don't have anything to irrigate, then this gzeira is moot.
What do we see this as a private gzeira? Gzeira is a gzeira. Just because you don't have it, it doesn't apply.
So this is not right. But this is not the Mechaber's own. This is coming from the Rishonim. The Rishonim say this. This is a Rambam. This is based on a Rambam and a Rosh, that they said that the gzeira was never made in places where it doesn't apply. It only applies where there's some watering to be done. V'yesh Omrim, and this is the Rosh, and we're going to see that this is the way Pashas we paskin. V'yesh Omrim, shelo yosser ela begalgal gadol. This whole Isser was only made when you're talking about a galgal gadol. This is a big machine. Shamaitzi mayim harbe b'yachad b'loy teirach, which is made to draw up a lot of water easily. V'hem galgalim akfuim behem deloyim harbe saviv. This is the type of galgal that has a lot of buckets attached to it. So it's constantly filling up and dumping a lot of buckets. Aval galgalim shalonu she'ein mamalim behem elama'at. But says to Mechaber, in his days, the galgal that they used that only drew up a small amount of water, mutar deleka l'meicha shlemini. So according to the Rush, it seems that this whole gzera was only on using a major machine that draws up a major amount of water easily. So it wasn't the derech to use that kind of mechanism to draw water for your home. So to draw water for your home from the well, that's not a problem. To go fire up the machine, and when I say fire up the machine, I don't mean that it used an engine or electric. It was all done by hand. But to go use this mechanism, which was made for, this is like a commercial enterprise. So that you're not going to do because of this gzera that you might come to do your irrigation. Is there any more? Chav Daled says the Mishnah Berurah v'yeshayimrim kasav el yarabah d'chet ikar, that we follow this yeshayimrim. Siv Zayin. Mi sheyesh lo peres barosh hagag. Somebody has produce stored on his rooftop. V'raya mata shabah, and he sees it's overcast, it's cloudy, and rain is coming, and he's afraid his produce is going to get ruined. Asur l'shal shalom b'shabes derech aruba shabagag. You're not allowed to lower the produce down through a trapdoor in the roof. We're going to see, because this is considered a tercha yisera that is not l'tzera Shabbos. But you are allowed to go grab a tarp or something and cover up the produce. Even if you have bricks stored up on the roof, and these bricks are muktzah, they're set aside for binyan, which is aser on Shabbos. So these are muktzah, they don't have a use on Shabbos, unless you were making it before Shabbos. Then mutar l'chasoysan ne'adelef, then even the bricks you're allowed to cover because they may get wet. Says the Mishnah Berurah, ice cotton chafei. Also, l'shal shalom, you're not allowed to lower the produce through a trapdoor. To tarak shalom l'tzar Shabbosu. This is a terka that has nothing to do with Shabbos. We don't do this on Shabbos. Haperes l'tzar chayoim shari. But if you had fruits over there that you want to use on Shabbos, that you're allowed to take down, so that they should not get ruined, because this is a Torah for Shabbos. So Torah for Shabbos is okay. You're allowed to cover them. The Maral was machmer on this. The Mechaber said that you could cover bricks as well, even though shehem muktzim. Says the Mishnah Berurah, why are they muktzah? We're talking about bricks that were arranged for use for building. So now they're building supplies are muktzah on Shabbos. You're allowed to cover them. You're not allowed to move the bricks because they're muktzah. Even if you don't have something to cover them with. Okay, Siv Ches, and this is going to bring back memories from Siman Shin Lamed Hey, where we had a similar halacha, yet the halacha over here is going to be different. Says the Mechaber, Motor litein keli tachas hadelef b'Shabbos. If your roof sprung a leak, and now you have a leak in your house, you're allowed to go put a bucket under the leak on Shabbos. V'im nismale, and if the bucket fills up, shoyvchai, you could empty the bucket, you could pour it out. And you can bring the bucket back to the place of the leak. However, says the Mechaber, this is only true if the water that you're catching has a use on Shabbos. If you could make use of this water for rechitza, or to give to animals, or something, if there's something that you could do with this water, then you're allowed to do this. Let's stop here in the Mechaber and let's go into the Mishnah Berurah. So the Mishnah Berurah says in Eis Chavtes, Takas Hadelef, you're putting it under a leak. Shedoilef derech hatikra is a leak in the ceiling. Now the Mechaber said you're allowed to catch it with a bucket. You're allowed to put the bucket in place to catch the water if the water is usable in rechitza. Says the Chavetz Chaim in Eis Cotton Lamed. Because the water that comes down is not in itself muktzah. It's not considered noilad, even though you might think rain is noilad. It wasn't here before Shabbos and now it's here. But we came out earlier that rain is not noilad because we say that the water is mechunasim ba'ananim. It's in the clouds. The water is there already in the clouds. So when it comes down, it's not considered noilad.
Why would in air conditioning we say condensation will be no less?
Because the water wasn't there. That's not water. That's not rainwater. That's in the clouds. That's water that's suspended. It's suspended in the air. It's not even really in a vapor form. What you're doing is you're changing the temperature of the water. You're changing the dew point of the water, and now you're forming vapor out of it, and then forming it into water and letting it come out. So that's noilad. Yeah, that's noilad. Now.
Water that you're catching, even though you could use it, but you don't have to use it.
Right, even though, as long as it's usable. So let's just realize what the point over here is. The point is, as long as the water is usable water, it's not muktzah. Because, like he says, Mishnah Berurah, it's not noilad, it's not muktzah as long as it's usable. Now, if it's usable water, so it's not muktzah, then you could put the bucket there, because no problem, you're catching water, that water's not muktzah. If the water is not usable, then go back to the top line on the mechaber. The mechaber says, "Avalim eino roi." If the water is not usable water, aser. Now the water is aser. Now you're not allowed to do this. Now, before we continue to the next words of the mechaber, the reason why now it's going to be aser is because this goes back now to what we saw previously in Shin Lamed Hey. Over there we spoke about catching grape juice that oozed out of the grapes on Shabbos. So that grape juice is muktzah, right? So if it's muktzah and you catch it in a keli, now you're being mavatal kli mehechanoi. Now you're taking muktzah. You have a keli that you're allowed to be metaltal on Shabbos. You catch muktzah juice in it. Now you're not allowed to move the keli anymore. So it's like you broke the keli, mavatal kli mehechanoi, which is an isser. The same thing would be really the problem here. If the water is not usable at all, so then it's muktzah water. If it's muktzah water and you catch it in a keli, now you're mavatal kli mehechanoi. Now, lamaisa, we're going to see that it's not really bittul kli mehechanoi. Because if you were over on this isser, let's say you didn't know until somebody told you, and you put the bucket there and you caught the water, and the water is not royal rechitza, the halach is you're still allowed to move it because it's a graf sharei. Oh, so then how come it's also to do this? It's also to do this because you're not allowed to make a graf sharei lechatchila. A graf sharei is a thing of garbage, right? Literally, it means a bucket of excrement, right? You're not mechuyev on Shabbos to have something repulsive sitting in your dining room. That's why you're allowed to clean the garbage off the floor. The garbage is muktzah. Why are you allowed to clean it up? You're allowed to clean it up because it's a graf sharei. So it's an interesting kind of circular reasoning over here. You're not allowed to catch the water in the bucket if the water is not usable, because then the water is muktzah. If it's muktzah, it goes in the bucket, you're not allowed to move it. So you're not allowed to move the bucket because so now it's bittul kli mehechanoi. Oh, but if you did it, guess what? You are allowed to move it because now it's a graf sharei. So if I'm allowed to move it, so why couldn't I catch it? Because you're not allowed to make a graf sharei lechatchila. In Shin Lamed Hey, why were we allowed to do it? In Shin Lamed Hey, we were allowed to do it only because it's a makom pseida. In a hefsid meruba, you're allowed to do it. So about a grape juice, we said it's a hefsid meruba, so you're allowed to make a graf sharei lechatchila. Now I got ahead of ourselves, so let's go back to the mechaber. The mechaber says, "Aval me'ein roi, if the water is not usable, also you're not allowed to put the bucket there, mishum she'ein oisid graf sharei lechatchila, because the only heter that you have to put the bucket there and catch the water is because it's only mutter if you're not being mavatal kli mehechanoi. But you're only not being mavatal kli mehechanoi if you're relying on graf sharei. And graf sharei, you're not allowed to make a graf sharei lechatchila. So that's the catch here. And the Mechaber continues, "V'im nasan kli takas delef she'eina royal rechitza." If you did put a bucket under a leak where the water is not royal rechitza, mutar l'taltalei b'mayim amusim shabai. You're still allowed to be metaltal the bucket because it's a graf sharei. Now let's see the Mishnah Berurah. The Mishnah Berurah says in Islam and Aleph, "Asar mishum she'ein pirish ein oisin davar sheyima'es." You're not allowed to create something repulsive. Al smach she'yeh mutar achakak lo hitziyai kegraf sharei. based on the understanding that you're going to be allowed to remove it because it's a graf sharei. Let's say the guy says, listen, I want to catch the leak water. Don't want it to leak all over my dining room. The water is not royal rechitza. Now, you're telling me that the reason I'm not allowed to catch it is because I can't rely on graf sharei lechatchila. Fine, I'm not going to. I'm making up now that I'm going to put the bucket there, and I'm not going to rely on the halacha of graf sharei. I'm not going to move it. I'm going to let it stay there till after Shabbos. Well, that you can't do. Gam kein aser. That's also aser. Kamasha kasva paiskim, like the paiskim can say, vayin bebir halacha. You can't do that because then you bring mavata kli mehechanai. If you make up that I'm not going to move the keli, right, because there's water in it that's muktzah, so then you're mavata kli mehechanai, and you're not allowed to be mavata kli mehechanai on Shabbos. So let's take a look at the Bir Halacha, because I think the way the Bir Halacha writes this makes it very understandable. The first Bir Halacha here on Kuf Pei Hayam Beis. Aser mishum she'ein. Hinei ikar hatam the aser lahamidoy takas hadelafu. The ikar reason, the reason why you're not allowed to put the bucket under the leak if the water is not royal rechitza, mishum she'ein mavatli kli mehechanai. Because the water is muktzah. By catching it in the bucket, you're making the bucket muktzah, so you're mavata kli mehechanai. The lo yeh yichaylos biyada l'haziza yachakach mim kaimai came into ispe muktzah. Because once you catch this unusable water in the bucket, now the bucket becomes muktzah and you're not allowed to move the bucket. The kedisa b'gemara. Elo mishum de'iya v'shari lases graf sharei lechatchila. If the halacha would be that you're allowed to make a graf sharei lechatchila, then lo yikari klal bittul kli mehechanai. Then it wouldn't be bittul kli mehechanai, because you catch the water in the bucket, you're making a graf sharei, and a graf sharei you're allowed to move. Because now you're allowed to move the bucket to l'shavchai and to empty it. Avo kevon the kaimelon the einos in graf sharei lechatchila. But since the halacha is that you're not allowed to create the graf sharei lechatchila, in Cain, therefore harehu muchrach lehisratzais lechatchila sheyamunach shabikvius. So then the only way you can get around this is by saying, I'm not going to rely on graf sharei. I'm going to catch the water and I'm not going to move it. But then you can't do that. Now it becomes bittul kli mehechanai again. Because you're not going to move it. Yeah. So it's a very funny thing. You're not allowed to do this because if you do it, you're not allowed to move the bucket. But if you did it, you're allowed to move the bucket because now it's already a graf sharei. You didn't make it lechatchila that way. Now it's a graf sharei. Now you're allowed to move it. Okay.
I wonder if it is that you don't know that it's going to be a graf sharei when you do put the bucket up there.
Oh, so you're asking a question like, what if I don't know what kind of water this is? I don't know. Maybe it is royal rechitza. Maybe it's not royal rechitza. So yeah. So I would think that you're allowed to put it there because, as far as I know, there's every good reason to think that the water is usable. So I'll go catch the water. Now you look at it later and go, oh, I'm not going to wash my dishes with that thing. You don't have to wash your dishes either. You could wash anything. You know what I mean? It has to be mutter, something that you're allowed to wash. Can't be kibbutz. So it's got to be something that you can do with it. But you look at it and you say, nah, that's too dirty. All right, now it's a graf sharei. Now you're allowed to move it. Okay, onwards. Islam and Beis in the Mishnah Berurah Mutter, you're allowed to move it if you did catch water in it. And it turns out that the water is not royal rechitza. You're allowed to move it. Don't think you have to wait until the bucket is overflowing. No. Even when the bucket is half full, you're allowed to move it. This is an important point. This whole idea that you're allowed to move the bucket because it's a graf sharei, that's v'dafka kishu nasid b'makayim sheyeshivasai kavua sham. Graf sharei only applies if the bucket is near where you typically sit. So then it's considered a graf sharei because you're not mechuyev to have this repulsive item in your face when you're sitting by your dining room table. But if this is happening in the basement, right, and you don't use the basement, I'm talking about an unfinished basement, and you don't use the basement, it's not called a graf sharei. It's not in your face. It's not bothering you. And you can't decide, it would seem from here that by this halacha, you can't necessarily decide, oh, I'm going to go downstairs to the basement to read my paper, or to chaza my dirshu, because I want to sit in the basement, and now it's a graf sharei. Because over here, it's the Chavetz Chaim is being very careful. The dafka kishu nasid b'makom sheyishivasik kfua sham. In Shin Lamed Hey, where we were talking about the grape juice, which is a hefsed meruba, over there the Mechaber said, put your bed next to the bucket, and now it will be a graf sharei. But we're not saying that here. Over here, the Mishnah Berurah is saying it has to be that it's happening where you typically sit. You can't get away with just moving your chair over there.
One or all, you can't have a second bucket of Graf Shalrei.
What do you mean?
In other words, once you know it's a Graf Shalrei, like it's one thing that you put it over there.
Oh, yeah. Now to set it up again when you know that it's going to be water, no, that you can't do. Okay. Graf Sharei, you're allowed to remove. It's in the place where you typically sit. You're not mechuyev to have this repulsive item in your face. Okay. Siman Shin Lamed Tes. Kama dinim pratiyim anei hagin b'Shabbos u'bay zayin seifim. Over here, we're getting to the end of Ilchas Shabbos. Now the Mechaber is starting to do housekeeping. He's starting to clean up various details that didn't fall into any of the other Simanim until now. So, Kama dinim pratiyim, a lot of individual dinim, hanei hagin b'Shabbos that apply to Shabbos, u'bay zayin seifim. Says the Mechaber, Ein reichvin al gabe behema. You're not allowed to ride on an animal on Shabbos. Now this is an interesting gzeira. Says the Mishnah Berurah, he's cutting aleph. Ein reichvin, you're not allowed to ride. Le'el b'simin shin hey sif yud ches. Be'arti b'Mishnah Berurah hatam v'chol protein. He kicks you back to simin shin hey. And in simin shin hey, you'll see that the reason for the isser of riding on an animal is a gzeira that you might break off a branch to use it as a switch to hit the animal. So that's why you're not allowed to ride on an animal on Shabbos. What? The Baal Chai is muktzah now because you can't ride it. If you would be allowed to ride it, it wouldn't be muktzah. Is the? Oh, you want to because of shvisas behema, shvisas behemtai. So, are you allowed to have? Without this gzeira, would you be allowed to have your animal carry you outside Rosh Hashanah Dalan Amos? That's I don't know the answer to that question.
Maybe that's the derech of the behemoth to carry people.
I don't know. I don't know the answer. I don't know. Okay, says the Mechaber in Sif Beis. Ein shotin al penei hamayim. You're not allowed to float on the water. You're not allowed to go swimming. Afilu bivreicha shebechatzer, even in a pool that's in the yard. And the point over here is that it's in a Rishus HaYachid, and we'll see in the Mishnah Berurah why that matters. Well, you know what? Let's go down to the Mishnah Berurah right now. Mishnah Berurah is cutting bays. Al penei hamayim. You're not allowed to float on the water. So the Mishnah Berurah is being medayik over here. Realize what it says. You're not allowed to float on the water. Biyadav viraglov, with your hands and your feet. Shagam raglov akar min karka hamayim. The issur over here is you're not allowed to float on the water so that both your hands and your feet are removed from the ground. You're totally suspended by the water. Fa'atam, what's the reason that you're not allowed to go swimming on Shabbos, that you're not allowed to float? Shemeyaseh chavis shal shayotin k'demisayim l'kamon. It is a gzera that you might make a life preserver. This was a primitive type of life preserver that they had. V'hu keli shal guma. This is some kind of reed, some kind of keli made out of reeds. Sha'argan they would weave it. V'aisin kimin chavis aruka, and they would form it like a long barrel. Lilmaid by lashot alamayim, to help somebody learn how to swim. So this is the early tube that they would make somehow. This is a flotation device.
What is he saying? I missed it.
He's saying you're not allowed to.
Before,
Yeah.
Yad of the rock one.
It means that you have to be suspended in the water. Right, your feet are off the ground.
So,
That's the Isser. The Isser of swimming, this Gzera, only applies when both your hands and feet are off the ground. The Isser is to float on the water. In other words, to walk into a pool and walk in the pool would not be this Isser. There is no Isser over here of walking in a pool. You have a different problem of rechitza, that we're noyig, that we don't do rechitza even in cold water. But as far as the gzera against swimming, the gzera against swimming only applies when you are totally suspended in the water.
Why can't this mikvah allow on Shabbos?
Bir halacha holds it's not. Chavetz Chaim holds it's not.
You can go to mikvah
Nope.
Shabbos, but a woman goes to mikvah Shabbos.
Yes, tefillah shel mitzvah. But tefillah shel mitzvah bizmana. Some shittas say not bizmana, you don't.
the Gemara has a whole thing about these guys.
Yeah, but that's
who
tumid.
went to,
But that's if you're going to the mikveh because you're tummy, as you're going to the mikveh because you're about carrying your tummy, and then that's he talks about over here. It depends but for kedusha, in other words, the fellow who wants to go to the mikveh Shabbos morning because he goes to the mikveh every morning before davening, which is some kind of inyan of kedusha, that the Bir Halacha says you're not allowed to do on Shabbos.
so it's only for Rabbi Kohen. And what did these guys do in the Gemara over there? They went to the river. They went over the roofs.
Right. So
They're going over the roofs. So they could.
right. So the question. So I'm saying.
over the Eruv.
Yeah. So the question is what.
They had towels.
The question is what they're being toivel for. That's to give you a question. There's certain things you're allowed to toivel on Shabbos for, certain things you're not. Depends why you're doing it. But like this, we don't do it. Okay. So, but again, the gzer. Well,
Are we worried about swimming, or are we worried about
no,
squeezing
we're worried about rechitza. The standard issue gzera against rechitza, which if you take a look in the Dirshu, footnote number 1 in Siman Shin Lamites. V'afa pishikenu me'ikar adin, even though me'ikar adin, there is no gzera against swimming unless you're totally suspended in the water. Kasav la'el, we said earlier, in Siman Shin Chavav, shamikam makam nagu shalai lirchaitz ben nahar oy b'mikvah klal. We're knowing that you don't wash, you don't bathe in a river or in a mikveh at all, mishum shamatzoi sheyavayu b'kachli de schita seyar, because you might come to squeeze to yisr of schita by squeezing out the hair or with towels, or mitavim leisafim. There are other reasons also that they made this gzera. Umakbas kain kasav sham shamash nag la'nashim shaloi litval b'shabbos tefillah shaloi b'zmana. This that some people have, that a woman doesn't go to the mikveh if it's shaloi b'zmana minig yafahu. Kevin shakalatam shamutal adam litva mitamasai. The whole reason that you're allowed to do this, the only reason we let you get away with tefillah in the first place is because we say that there's no tikkun mana, even though you're fixing yourself up because you're tabeh and you're making yourself tar, but people aren't going to think that that's why you're doing it, and maybe you're doing it just to cool off. Right? We don't go swimming to cool off on Shabbos. And he goes through over here different reasons to be toivel. But he comes out over here that for Kedusha, if you look at the second to last line of the last paragraph in this footnote, it should not be done on Shabbos.
Wait, I don't understand. Okay. He says,
Tefillah shaloi b'zmana. Right.
What do you mean? You're not allowed to. Shalom Bismana to be toilet. What are they toilet?
He-
Shalom Bismana.
He's not, what?
Why are they toiling Shalom Bismana?
Why are they doing it? They missed.
What?
They missed. They were supposed to go Thursday. They didn't go for whatever reason.
So that isn't
So
so
now-
Bismana already? Any time that's afterwards, not considered Bismana? Bismana means before. Shalom Bismana.
Let's say there was a simcha.
No, I assume.
It's after.
I assumed he meant Shaloi Bizmanam.
So if you're doing it in the Shem, how do you call it? If Machmas Keri and all this, so there's no Gzera Schita Sarah. I mean,
One second.
Schita Sarah might be in their eyesight. I don't know.
Shin Chavav. Seif Cotton Chaf Dalad. Shin Chavav. I have to look into it more, but my assumption is that he means over here in Shin Chavav that if it's not Leil Tefillah, then she shouldn't do it because there's a heter on Leil Tefillah. We're not going to stop her from going because of a takana. But if it's not the Leil Tefillah, then why is she doing it? All right, I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
I don't understand. So if he's going for Machmas Keri, and we're not worried about squeezing the hair, and we're not worried about squeezing the towel, that's almost a psik ratio with the towel. There's no such thing as...
It's not. I don't want to get into the whole thing of rechitza now, but when we made the gzera in Shin Chavav, when they make the gzera on against washing in cold, that's not even. That's the later paiskim. It's not gzeras chachamim. The gzeras chachamim was on rechitza b'chamin, not on rechitza in Siman. We're worried about. We don't want you to come to do schita on here, but
they didn't use towels.
saying that there are ways to do it without.
They didn't use towels. That's what.
Saying whatever it is, but that's not. It wasn't
Squeezing the hair.
Gzeres chachamim, right? This is in Chaf Aleph.
It's shy to squeeze hair.
Yeah, on here we're worried about schita on here. The water gets trapped in the hair.
Yeah, but that's not the real schita.
See, this is paiskim. Kasra paiskim denagu shel alirchaitz klal benara b'mikveh the matzi lavi l'dei schita seir va'id kam tamim. I'm among an Avram. This is later paiskim. This is not.
So hair is considered something that you could squeeze water.
Yeah, sure.
It's like a
Yeah.
towel. A towel is what? It's liquid. What is a towel? A towel is actually
It's schita.
water out from there.
Yeah, it's schita. It's not just malabin. It's not just Isser of kibbutz. It's Isser of schita. You're squeezing the water out of the towel.
So how come you don't have schita by nylon? How do you call it?
Because it's a synthetic. It's not absorbent. It's a synthetic. We don't have schita on synthetics.
Hair absorbs.
It gets trapped in between the hairs.
You get trapped between the plastic also.
But it's not. We don't have on synthetics. There's no schita.
Don't they say the hair should be loose?
Synthetics. There's no schita. Okay, let's go weiter. Want to catch up over here? We have another minute. Okay. Bevrecha, he's cutting gimel. Bevrecha, hu makom kinus mayim lekvisa lishras pishtan. This is a pool that's made to put water in so you could soak your flax or wash your laundry. He's cutting dalid. The Mechaber said you're not allowed to go swimming even in a pool that's in the chotzer. Shebachotzer, the Chavetz Chaim says, the ilu kishabrecha medis b'rishus harabim. If the pool would be in a rishus harabim, balav hachi aser. Then without this takon, it would also be aser. Shemiyat his mayim baragel of chutz l'arba amos. Because you're going to splash in the pool, splash water out of the pool, and if the water goes out of dalad amos, then you're over on hoitzah. Now, the Mechaber continues, if we go back up to the Mechaber says, so you're not allowed to do this, afilu b'vreicha shebachotzer, even if the pool is in a rishus hayachid, so we don't have to worry about the splashing. When water splashes out of the pool and it goes into the chotzer, dami l'nahar, it's similar to a river. Let's see what the Chavetz Chaim says. What does that mean? Ice cutting hay, dami l'nahar, kishamayim yotzid min abrecha. When the water splashes out of the pool, v'nimshachin b'chotzer mikoichai shedoicha hamayim biyadav v'raglav b'shayatasai. The water goes out of the pool from his splashing, then it flows back into the pool. Says the Mechaber is saying it's similar to a river of flowing water. They explain that what's going on over here is that the gzera against making this life preserver only applies when you're going swimming in a lake or in a river. Really, it shouldn't apply when you're taking a bath in a tub or when you're going in a small pool. But since the pool, it might splash water out of it and then water will go back into it, now suddenly it becomes similar to a lake or a river, and now the gzera comes back. And therefore the Mechaber ends off Siv Beis, V'em yesh la safa saviv, if there's a wall that goes over the water level around the pool, then mutter. The kevin dafilu nekra amayim hasafa b'chazeres haysam l'mkayman, since all the water is trapped inside the pool, hevelei kikli, now you're going swimming in a keli, and then this gzera doesn't apply. Says the Chavetz Chaim Safa, Hainu kein ksalim gevayim mikol tzad. If there are walls going up on each side, we'll have to stop here at Sif Gimel. Okay.